to those children forever. Those foster parents get to adopt those children, and guess what? They continue to get that $3,000 a month until the children are 18. Now, let's say the children are a little older. Let's talk about children who are 14, 15, 16. Now, if any of you had children that age, I'm going to tell you, I've been a family law attorney for 25 years, and I have clients come in and they have teenage children. I've raised teenage children. Mine finally made it to their 20s, but I tell them this. I say, you know why there's no good books on how to raise a teenager? Because anybody who survived it is going to talk about it. So let's just say you get a teenager about 14, 15 years old, and good Lord knows what they're tied up in these days, and then the internet and finding boys and all that kind of crazy stuff, and so they want to get away from their parents, and so they tell somebody their parents are abusing them. How about that? And so they come and DCS are their parents. They won't listen to their parents, and their parents take them to court, to juvenile court, because they're unruly. And before they even get to court the next day, the child has told somebody in the court system that their parents are mean to them and beat them, and they don't want to go home, or they're afraid to go home. They will go to foster care. Foster care. Instead of a judge saying you need to go home and you need to listen to your parents, you need to get off the internet, they go to foster care. I can tell you some personal sad stories about that, about a poor child who was living in my community, which is a very nice community, being taken out of his home because he got in conflict with his parents, and being sent a county over where he was sent to a trailer park where there were 5 other foster kids living there. And soon he was exposed to drugs and sex and violence. We are. Now, one more thing about those Title IV funds. Those children that go in foster care, there's a shelf life. So the foster care system wants to keep that child for 15 months. 15 months in the life of a child. A 3-year-old, a 2-year-old. Their whole world. You know, I talk to clients that come in and they have little kids, and I said, it's so hard to put yourself back in the body of a 3-year-old. When your whole world is the 4 walls of your house. They take them and they put them in the homes of strangers. And they get to see their parents an hour a week. I kid you not. That child doesn't even remember who their family is. 15 months they can keep them in the foster care system, and then they have to make a decision. They have to either terminate their parental rights or give them back. Give them back. And you know what? Sometimes they do that. Like, okay, you're okay now. We're going to give them back. And who knows what they've done and messed with them. I've had a little 4-year-old boy come back from being in foster care for 12 months and talking about how the foster parents locked him in the closet. And nobody reports that. Now I'm going to talk to you. I wanted to keep my talk short and concise. I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit, but these are such important issues. Let me talk to you just about this, how this system works against itself. I was a prosecutor, district attorney. District attorney prosecutes crime. On every day that I went to work, I had to fight against the public defender's office, because you know why? The public defender's office and the DA's office, the 20 shall never meet. We were always pulling at each other. Child welfare agencies. There is a saying that says that agencies that exist to serve seek to exist. Within the child welfare agency, the very same agency, there are 2 conflicting roles. There is a role in almost every state. The agency has the word services in it. Department of Children's Services, Family and Children's Services, 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 services. They are supposed to be providing services for a family and rehabilitating them. But you know what else they do is they prosecute parents. And so you never have the give and pull and the tug against each other to work in opposite directions. If you don't have a pull of force from both sides, you can never have balance. And let me tell you how perverse it is. They take a parent, they take their kids away from them, and they say, you've got to go to our counselor who contracts with us, and you've got to have an assessment done, and you need to follow the recommendations of that counselor. Well, now remember, they want to keep that child in foster care for 15 months. So the parent goes to their counselor, and their counselor says, well, I think you need monthly therapy or bi-weekly therapy for the next 12 months or so. Of course you do. The contractors, these private contractors for foster care and child welfare are doing the very same thing. They are on one hand being the private contractors for foster care, and on the other hand the private contractors for these reunification services. I've sat in meetings with them and I says, y'all can't put your hand in both pockets at the same time. Why would you ever rehabilitate my client when you're making $1,000 a month on keeping that child in foster care? And they just turn their nose to me and say, you're going to have to call the commissioner. Well, the commissioner ain't going to talk to me. It is all set up to fail. It's set up so that parents will fail. I want to tell you another scary thought about this whole thing, and sometimes I close my eyes and I can visualize this because I know people who are in the business, they are in foster care for profit. They get 4, 5, 6 children, 7 children, 8 children, 9 children, 10 children, $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 a month in tax-free money. They are in foster care for profit. Now I told you about this adoption, right? And so they adopt children, and they continue to get $1,000 a month per child after the adoption's over, and then the state shuts down. The state never follows up with them. I'm going to tell you a really scary thought I have in my head, and I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibilities. There are foster-to-profit people out there, not very good people, and once they adopt and close the case and they got their check coming in, I'm not so sure that by the time that child's 13, 14 years old, they don't sell it off to somebody else. They still get their check. The agency's out of the picture. Nobody's accounting for that child. There's no more relatives. There's no more real grandma to check on them. Recently, there was a big bust in Florida of all these children who had been picked up off the streets. I'm just telling you, it's within the realm of possibilities. Foster care has now become generational. Many of these children who've been raised in the foster care system are now having children. They have a target on their back. Because you know why? Those files never go away. And all it takes is for a child welfare agency to say, well, you know, we know you were in the system. That already gives you 3 demerits on whether or not you know how to parent your children. Where are we now? As I told you at the beginning, this is not a political issue. In 2016, Senators Wright and Hatch introduced what was called the Families First Act. I went to Washington and helped lobby for it. It passed through Congress, hands down, no problem. What the Families First Act was to do was to reallocate the funding so that more funds would be used to rehabilitate and keep families together in one piece. It failed in the Senate. Now there's a website out there called opensecrets.org. It's a great website. It's about lobbyists. You can go to opensecrets.org and you can type in any keyword you want to, and it'll tell you all the people in Washington, D.C. lobbying on that issue. Type in foster care. 114 lobbyists. 114 lobbyists. There is so much money. These industries are so huge. They're huge companies, and they go across several states. Providence, Omni, Youth Villages. They're recruiting corporations to promote foster care. Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, Mattress Firm, all about how we think it's such a bold and beautiful thing. I'm not saying that there's not a place for foster care, but I'm telling you the children have become the commodity of a very broken system. Our voices are the only thing that's going to make a change. The mantra, the story about child abuse, drug abuse, the breakdown of the family has to be on our tongues every day. We need to be reaching out to our communities. We need to engage our church in missions right here at home. Missions at home. Reaching out for families that you see need to have assistance. Reaching out to support relatives who take in children from the family so that they can have a good and stable home. I want to share, as a lawyer, I have to share a few things legal. I told you earlier that we had a crisis of crimes against humanity in the United States. Let me tell you about a few legal cases, things that always come to my mind. In 1927, the United States Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, most people probably heard that name, right? Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote an opinion that approved the involuntary sterilization of people who were in an institution. I'm going to read to you what he wrote. We have seen more than once that the public welfare may come upon the best citizens for their lives. It would be strange if we could not call upon those who already sap the strength of the state for these lesser sacrifices, in order to prevent being swamped with incompetence. It is better for all the world if, instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime or let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. The principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. That is our United States Supreme Court Justice. 50 years later, those people know about Wade v. Roe. It's okay to kill a baby. I will say that there's a breath of hope. In 2017, not the Supreme Court, but the Ninth Circuit Court in California did rule that a social worker cannot lie in a paper they file with the court for the purpose of stealing the child. I do want to share with you also one little direct Michigan hit story. There's a case out there called the Mike's Hard Lemonade case. It's a case where a dad took his child to a baseball game and he accidentally gave him Mike's Hard Lemonade. I mean, not a very smart parenting decision. But, parents aren't perfect. They took his kid and put his kid in foster care. And the reason there was a lawsuit about it because of what they found out, and I totally believe it. And it's in other places. What the judge was doing, the judge was taking blank forms and signing her name to blank forms and leaving them in the clerk's office, and then a social worker could go into the clerk's office and write up something that the judge had never seen and authorize the stealing of a child. Now, folks, I'm telling you, I live it, I see it, it happens. We need to be outraged. absolutely outrage. I'm going to call upon you and challenge you. First of all, this event. You need to make sure that this happens again next year, and that it's bigger and it's better, and that you raise funds and you get grants and you get a corporate sponsor, and you make this happen, because this is so important. It was destroyed. Yeah, the birth certificate was destroyed. Your identity. They take your name away. They give you a new name. So I challenge you to move forward. If you're active in social media, the Family Forward group is our group. In 2018, we will finalize, took it down, but the Family Forward Foundation will get its 501c3 nonprofit status. And we look for you to join us as a member so that we can reach out and we can make a change. I want you to lose some sleep over this tonight. I want you to quiver a little bit. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about what I think about that child who's no longer wanted even their adopted home and is given away. It happens. Thank you all so much.
I just want to say something. We are truly in a crisis. It reminds me of years and years and thousands of years ago. God's people was in a crisis. And God sent a deliverer. His name was Moses. As I look out here and I sat there, I can almost hear the Father say, there's a lot of Moses out here. You can be a Moses. Remember, I stated earlier, 15,000 babies are born every hour. Not every day, every hour. That means God is still on the throne, and he's full of grace and mercy. And today, we have been caught in the net. And you can be a Moses. So the next child you see, be that Moses to that child. That's something to think about.